We're off. Are we? I think so. Okay.
Are we on this one yet? Did I miss one?
No, you didn't. So the way that this curriculum works is that we go from 10 down to 4.
Right.
Then we go 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay.
So the first 3 are, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. Do not have any other gods, and do not take the name of the Lord in vain. And it didn't make sense to us to start going into do not take the name of the Lord in vain when the 2 before, which are kind of introductory, I think. So,
right, we can maybe skip the word.
So you'll see on the right-hand side, it's the June.
Right. Okay. Good. Not good. Niceness. I'll do that with my group because we don't always meet in summer, so maybe I'll just put it all in one kind of thing.
Okay, you could do that.
Yeah.
And this is 11 weeks total, yes?
Yes, it is. Did we advertise it as 11 or 10 in the beginning?
I don't know.
Now, sometimes I do the introduction and the first one in one class, just so we get into some, but we spent the whole first class in the introduction. It's better that way. Okay, it should be 3 more, this and 2 more weeks.
I mean, the actual class is 11, the offering is 11 weeks.
The 11 booklets, yeah.
Uh-huh.
There are, which I know a lot of people like 10 weeks, but okay, is what it is. Yeah, so we have the next 2 weeks. Great. I'm the Lord your God, a call to kindness. Wow. Introduction. Even though the vast majority of Westerners believe in God, I was just doing a comparative religion project with my son last night. So in very broad strokes, about 1/6 of the world are not believers, but 5/6 of the world fit into some belief system, which is pretty, actually a lot stronger than I thought. Europe, in terms of people without belief, actually Europe and America are, these Western cultures have the highest proportions. But even still, a vast majority of Westerners still believe in God. Many believers struggle with their belief. Many are not comfortable with their belief and are uneasy speaking openly, confidently, and intelligently about God, the God conversation. People have many questions. Where was God during the Holocaust? Why is there so much bad in God? If we have scientific solutions to our problems, do we still need God? Where is God? Does God interact with us on a daily basis? Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Okay, so we are just to fill you in, the way the curriculum works is we went from 10 down to 4, and now we're going 1, 2, 3. So this is I'm the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt, the call to kindness, and the introduction is the God conversation is difficult. Let's see the text. Source 1. Yigdal Elokim Chai Ve'yishtabach. May the living God be exalted and praised. He exists without being confined to time. He is one, and there is no unity like his unity. He is hidden with no qualification to his unity. He has no bodily resemblance and has no body. His holiness is without description. He preceded everything created. He was first with no beginning to his beginning. Source 2, The Way of God by Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, Chapter 1. Our assumptions are 6. The truth of God's existence and that he is perfect, absolutely exists, independently exists, indivisible, and one. Conversation. Can you describe the God you believe in or do not believe in? Question 2. Why is the God conversation generally not an easy one to have? Number 3. Many people speak about having a personal relationship with God. Do you believe in this? What does it look like? Sharon, are you speaking? You're muted.
Yeah, no, I said don't all speak at once.
Yeah.
Very quiet all of a sudden. No,
Excellent.
yeah, it's kind of hard. I think it's not easy because there's so many different ways to think of God. I think it's interesting, at least in Judaism, that we don't really formally have like some kind of, you have to believe God, although this is here, and this is based on the text that we read I believe it's based on the Rambam's 13 Principles of God, Yigdal, sort of around that, I think. Until that, we really didn't have this, you have to believe that God is this or else you're not Jewish, so, and it's so it's difficult, I think, to have that conversation. I think it's maybe it's intimidating to some people. You don't want to, because I think it's very unknown. That's just why I think it's difficult for the conversation, to have that God conversation. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Well, it's hard for me because I don't think I can certainly describe anything that resembles a human being or a physical God. But I do believe in my concept of God as a force in the universe. And that's the type of God I believe in. I have a very, very hard time with the man with the white beard on a throne or reaching out a finger to Moses. That I can't envision that, and I have a very hard time with the actions of God in some of the destructions that are noted in Genesis and later on.
Because?
That's a vengeful God or an angry God is not a God that I can connect with.
Uh-huh.
I think man does the bad things.
There's an interesting commentary by the Ran. The Ran was Rabbeinu Nissim, one of the medieval commentators, and he's also bothered by God being jealous and vengeful. And his explanation is that God has a system of judgment, and as pretty clear in the Torah, as man behaves, so God reacts. And sometimes God reacts in a way which is, from our perception, if God was a person, how we relate to that sort of behavior would be vengeful. But it's not immoral. It's not wrong. It's God saying, okay, listen, I told you, if you're faithful to me, you can be in the land and I'll bless you. If you're not, I'm not that interested. So, kick you out the land. That's fair. But from a human point of view, if we would see someone relating to someone else that way, we could relate to it as vengeful in a maybe negative sense, but also a harsh sense, which is meant to get the message across to us. But I think a lot of people, that's one of the biggest problems, is our belief it's interesting because in Yigdal, which, as Sharon said, is based on the Rambam never gives positive descriptions of God. He shies away from that and says, we cannot know God, so how can I tell you anything that he is? All I can tell you is he's not. He's not physical. He's not confined. He's not, right?
But God is a he.
But she, right?
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Like, Rambam came, he's the Middle Ages. We've already got past this idea of the man with the beard, which came from actually the book of Daniel, I believe. But, if God is formless and everything else, yet in the Torah, God, there's anthropomorphism all over the place for God. God has hands. God has a strong arm,
Right.
and
He has eyes. The
he
eyes
gets
of
angry,
God.
his nose flares, and he's like, God is very, very much seems human to us. For at least if you want to just look at it, on the surface. My rationalization is that at that time you can't, man or people, humanity couldn't really, we always try to put things into terms, like us, like even when we make the silly cartoons with animals becoming like human beings.
Yeah, exactly, right.
We need to be able to like have something that we feel like we have a personal relationship. It's also very interesting that Moses is the only person that seems to have that personal face-to-face relationship. Everybody else sees God in a very nebulous kind of dreamlike thing. So, to have, I guess, some people want a personal relationship where you can have that. I don't really, for me, I don't look at God in that personal way. God is more, a force, a nature, a thing. I'd rather even look at God as not being completely, controlling every little thing that we do. I think there might
Well,
be.
actually, I want to ask you, what does it mean when people speak about having a personal relationship with God? What actually does that mean?
I think it means that you can, like, you can. I don't know. I go back and forth. I did this whole thing. If you even look at what kind of names we call God, we have, God has many names in the Torah, and then the one name, the Yud Hey Vav Hey, we don't even know what that is. We call God Hashem. We don't even know what that name is. So in the Reform movement, we've come to gender sensitize the language about God and not make God masculine. In the Reconstructionist prayer book, the way they got around translating Adonai is to have a different word, pair, or thing describing God, supreme being, omniscient, whatever, all over the place. There's like there's like 25 different names.
Wow.
And I got to look at that. I'm like, well, that's kind of really too fuzzy for me. It's like sometimes you don't want to pray to an invisible force. You want to be able to pray to God to help you at times and feel like there's that in that personal way. On the other hand, it's hard for me to look at God as really like a puppet master controlling every little thing, especially when it comes to tragedy. Why would, a 3-year-old crossing the street get hit by a car, and, that God did that on purpose? It's kind of hard for me to take that, or why does somebody, get cancer and somebody else, or have horrible things happen to them. I can't, and even if something good comes out after the tragedy, I have a hard time, saying that, let's say something happened to a child and terrible disease, but the parents made a foundation and they found a cure. And then, all these other millions of kids, got cured. But what about the kids that had to die? So I can't, rationalize.
Those arguments are always hard because if God is infinitely able, so
right.
make the foundation and the cure without killing the kids. Like,
right. Yeah. So I can't reconcile
almost,
that.
yeah,
I
think what's hard, and just listening to you, what's hard is because of what we are assuming about God. So he is good, he is all able, he is perfect, right? So then we have this problem of, okay, so why is there bad? Why is there suffering? Why? And then, so I think it's interesting. First of all, I think a personal relationship means, like any personal relationship, is that you know them personally. God is personally interested in me. When I deal, with a flock of sheep, and I need to get the sheep from one place to another, I have no care. I just need 20 sheep. I'm not interested in any one per se. I just need 20, so 20 go. But when you have a personal relationship, so then there's something unique about me that God is interested, not just because I'm human, not just because, it's because there's something unique to me. I think what becomes difficult then is, okay, if he's so unique, if he is personal to me, so how come there are things, the pain and suffering in my life? God, you're all able, you're all good. I think maybe depersonalizing God might be a way of dealing with that, which I'm not criticizing. I'm just looking at the dynamic over here of being really this condition of dealing with a good God and bad in the world.
Well, for me, I do have a personal relationship with God. I talk to him or her all the time. I talk with God all the time. I don't expect an answer, okay? But God is someone who listens, so I assume God has some form of ears. If I had to give him any physical...
Carol, he's listening.
Right. And I've had bad things happen to me, but my belief allows me to go on because of that. I'm able to go on because of that belief, not because God has done anything wonderful to give me a cure or anything like that. But I think for me, God is a big thing, and I'm just a little thing. Very important to me and to my family, but I'm little and God is very, very big.
I think there's that we can't escape I can't escape my rationality. I am a child of the Enlightenment, and I will always look at the world that way. And so an issue with God is the questioning, do I believe in this? Have I created this because I need this? And just that conversation I have with myself. And I think that for me, I end up thinking, I believe because I believe because I believe, because that's just as strong as my rationality. So I have this sort of cognitive dissonance thinking, why do bad things happen, or when bad things happen? And then I have, because they do. And I'm not being very articulate, but I think from my personal experience, I think I do have a very personal relationship with God, very different from yours, Carol, because it's very hard for me to think about praying to him. I pray to be receptive to the messages that I'm receiving around me, to be that pain or love or solutions or whatever, that it's, that it's always there, but I'm not open to it or sensitive to it. And I also think, in terms of God controlling us, I don't see that. I agree, Sharon. Again, the rational part of me thinks, no, God is not a puppet master. We have agency. And we all know when we are going against the flow, which is really how I think of God, as this, you call it a force, you call it, I call it a flow. And we know when we're going with the flow because we feel it first in our gut. You just do. And when you're going against the flow, and is that God letting you know? Well, it's, if I say God is a flow, then I will say, yes, that's a message from the universe, this flow, which is looking for unity and a positive flow, as opposed to going against the wind.
That's really interesting, because I have to give a devar this Friday, so I've been reading the parsha, and I don't think I could ever have the chutzpah to say to God, yeah, I'll believe in you if this, if that, if the other thing.
Yeah,
And-
no, and I hope you don't hear me saying that.
No, I don't.
Okay.
That seems to be what Jacob said.
Yes, that's what, and
Yeah,
I don't,
I was very bothered by this last week. And I didn't find any satisfactory commentaries either about, what he was really doing there. And on the one hand, also I think this dynamic is, if God is real to us, so then he's real to us almost, that also makes him more human. And because that's who we relate to. We relate to other beings, other conscious beings, other free will conscious beings, because we are. And then it becomes, okay, well, can we make a deal? You could start to, okay, that's good. I think we had a very good God conversation. Well done. It could be the God conversation. I'm speaking now from old age. Is if you have a real agenda, that's bad. If you're going to go into the God conversation with trying to convince someone or trying to persuade someone that they need to believe in the God you believe in, that's very uncomfortable as a recipient and probably as the person leading that conversation. But if you go into it openly, I think it's a very fruitful conversation. And because you always hear, there's so many perspectives, there's so many ideas that you hear, and it's very significant, right? We don't know with non-believers, how significant it is, but it's very, for people that believe in God, God plays a very big role in people's lives. And I think it's a very worthwhile and fruitful conversation. Okay, moving on. Introduction. Peshat, the literal understanding. This diber is unique in that it is not in command form. So it says, "I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt." It is because of this that some commentators do not count it as one of the 613 mitzvot. Whether it is or isn't a mitzvah, it's definitely a diber, the first of the 10 commandments. So let's see the text. I'm the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. Source 2, Rambam, Sefer Mitzvot, positive commandment number 1. So this is his listing of the 613. There is a mitzvah in which we're being commanded to believe in God. One should believe that there is a first cause who brings about all existence. This is the intent of the words, I am the Lord your God. It's interesting how he defines what you need to believe about God. Source 3, Rav Chazdai Karesis. He wrote a book called Or Hashem, the Light of the Lord. In the introduction, it is a mistake to count belief in God amongst the 630 mitzvot, because it is not feasible to have a commandment without a known commander. If believing in God is a commandment, it perforce already assumes the existence of God. And in that case, there's no need for the commandment. Fantastic argument. Okay, conversation. Is belief in God a choice? Number 2, you may remember that a more accurate translation of Aseret, the 10 Commandments, is the 10 principles or core values. According to the opinion that this is not a commandment but a statement, what message are we meant to take from it?
I think the message might be a framework, that this is from which this is the font right here.
I like that. Is belief a choice?
I think so.
yes.
And yeah, obviously it's a choice, but if you take it as the way the, source 3 has, that, if you're already looking at the Torah as like, this is already existing, and that it's not a commandment because that really then they're already assuming that you already believe. Like, that's what it sounds like to me. So that there isn't a choice because there is God. But I do believe that there is a choice. You don't have to. There's many atheists out there. That many people think the entire Bible is ridiculous. I don't, but so
What would you say to someone, let's say like Jill said, she's a rationalist. What did you say you're a product of? Enlightenment? What happens if you have a rationalist that comes to says rationally, I cannot bring myself to know God, to believe in God. So
I say, because I do believe I am a rationalist as well. I don't always believe in mumbo jumbo things, but there is, I don't think you can deny that there is something bigger out there than us, that the universe, the system, the way it's working, it's just too wonderful and
Orderly.
and orderly and just the nature and science and everything that goes together. It's phenomenal. So I can't think that this, and yes, you could look at things and say, yes, there's this random things going on and we randomly came out like this. I can't believe that it's too perfect to be random. And so there has to be something bigger than us out there that put this in. And I'm in awe of that this whole system of the entire universe is the way, has developed the way it has, with the imperfections built in, and so that's what I say. I think it got, believing in a God of justice and peace and love is helps me have purpose in my life, otherwise, if you don't believe in anything and it's just there, then I don't know, I have a hard time thinking, then what, what is, and I know there are plenty of people out there that don't believe and are very good people and work for justice and peace and everything else too. But I would say that we just don't know for sure. I'd rather believe that there's something greater than me out there. I just feel like if there isn't anything, like, then what? Then it's just, I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be something that I believe that there's a creator out there that made this wonderful system and there's some purpose behind it. That's just, that's what I would say. But what I don't always love is, some of the, atheists might, they think this whole thing is ridiculous and you're stupid and, you believe, like, they'll pick out the little pieces of Torah that, where God isn't doing such nice things and say, isn't this terrible? Throw the whole thing out the window. But I don't believe that, at all.
Okay, good. Introduction. You saw the underlying principle. Who has inflicted this upon us? Who has made us Jews different from all other people? Who has allowed us to suffer so terribly till now? It is God that has made us, who has made us as we are. But it will be God too who will raise us up again if we bear all the suffering. And if there are still Jews left, when it is over, then Jews, instead of being doomed, will be held up as an example. Who knows, it might even be our religion from which the world and all peoples learn good. And for that reason, and that reason alone, do we have to suffer now. We can never become just Netherlanders or just English or representatives of any country for that matter. We will always remain Jews, but we want to too. And Frank.
Oh, okay. A 13-year-old. Okay, got it. I mean, I was kind of, okay.
Okay, source one. The Maharal of Prague points out the words, your God, in the commandment, right? In the Diber, I am the Lord your God. In some way, God is specifically our God. This is the notion of being the chosen nation. The roots of this idea also go back to Abraham. Source 2. I will maintain my covenant between me and you, Abraham, and your offspring to come, as an everlasting covenant throughout the ages, to be your God and your offspring to come. Source 3. The covenant extended to the children of Israel. I will be ever present in your midst. I will be your God, and you shall be my people. Source 4. For I am the Lord who brought you up from the land of Egypt to be your God. You shall be holy, for I am holy. Source 5. For he said, it is too little that you should be my servant, in that I raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the survivors of Israel. I will also make you a light unto the nations, that my salvation may reach the ends of the earth. Okay, conversations. How is a conventional relationship different from any other, a covenantal relationship different from any other relationship? Oh, no, okay. How does this covenant inform our mission? Why is the concept of a chosen people problematic to some people? Is blessing or suffering part of being the chosen people? Is being chosen a virtue or a responsibility? How does the covenantal relationship between God and the Jewish people manifest itself on a daily basis?
Wow.
That's heavy. That's very, very heavy.
I have a very close Catholic friend who had me read a book on covenants. And the point made in the book, I think well put, was that the covenant, there is a holiness to a covenant that transcends transactions, and that a covenant also, in a covenant, and I think this is according to Jewish tradition, that it, again, as distinct from a transaction where you are in relationship to reach your own interest, to meet your own interest. In a covenant, you are mutually interested, so to speak. And of course, in this book that she gave me, it was talking about the everlastingness of a covenant. You can't break a covenant. You can break off relationships, but you don't, because I guess of the spiritual aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. And how would you translate that into towards answering these questions in terms of being in what does it mean that the Jewish people are in covenant with God?
Well, I think one of my issues, and I guess this is the Reconstructionist in me, really bristles at the idea of exclusivity. On the other hand, it would seem to me that different faiths almost undoubtedly would feel themselves in covenant with a deity, with a something transcendent, and so that they bring other words, other vocabularies and streams of knowledge, and our particular stream of knowledge brings the idea of a monotheism and ethics, and Christianity might bring, I don't know, I'm going to make this up, forgiveness or something like that they really are the people to do that, and together we're more than the sum of our parts. But I'm just all, that's because my 21st century key is not opening that 2,000-year-old door, in terms of exclusivity and chosenness.
Well, I think, one of the reasons why people have a problem with chosenness is it makes us feel like, well, we're better than you are. We're more special than you are because we have a special relationship, with God, and a special covenantal relationship with God than other people. So that's a problem. I think that's, that's why the Reconstructionists, threw that one out. I don't want to throw that out. I think we do have a special relationship with God, and I think that it's not necessarily that we're so special and we're great and we're better than you. It's that we have responsibility. This is an obligation. When we take this seriously, that we have this relationship with God, that we're going to do all these mitzvot, we take that seriously, and it's a burden. We can do that joyously, but it's a responsibility, and so that's how I like to look at it. We have an extra responsibility, because the other one is we should be a light into the nations. We should be an example. We're a nation of priests. We have to, we have that extra responsibility that other people do not.
I found somebody once said to me that every Jew today is a Jew by choice because we all have so many options. And I, like you, Sharon, view it as I have chosen this path that I'm walking on right now. And by choosing it, I have obligations to fulfill. So I don't think God put the yoke on me. I put the yoke on me.
Right. I mean, nowadays, we don't live in shtetls. We don't have only, everybody, at least in the West, world, we don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be any religion. So that the fact that, we are engaging and actually doing that, yes, is a choice. So maybe you can look at chosen and choice. I don't know, some kind of thing that goes together.
Okay, I guess the question is, and it goes back to Sinai and receiving the Ten Commandments, where we have this Naaseh v'nishma idea, where we are offered, we're offered this covenant. Can you be forced into a covenant? I would imagine not. A covenant is...
It depends on whether God has the mountain hanging over your head.
I hear. Good one. Okay. Yeah, that's the best question of the giving of the Ten Commandments. What does Naaseh v'nishma have to do with the mountain? With the mountain over your head, you got to say Naaseh v'nishma. Okay. Introduction. What's in a name? In order to explore the intent of the debate, we examine two different names commonly used for God and what they mean. Most significantly, the name Hashem, translated as the Lord, signifies mercy, and Elohim, translated as God, signifies justice. The text below explore the nature of God balancing justice and mercy. Genesis 1. Bereshit bara Elohim, et hashemayim ve'et haaretz. Rashi. Note that the name for God in the verse above, Elohim, is as opposed to what we might have expected the name Hashem. It does not state bara Hashem, the Lord created, because at first he intended to create the world in justice. But he saw that the world could not endure. He therefore brought forth mercy and allied it with justice. This explains the verse later on in Genesis 2:4, on the day that Hashem, Elohim, made heaven and earth. Source 2 is, I am the Lord your God. It's a midrash. The Holy One, blessed be he, said, if you do my will, I will be the Lord, about which it says, the Lord, a God of mercy and grace. And if you do not do my will, I am your God, Elohim. So, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem, your God. I will reprove you, for the name God is a language of judgment. Source 3. The Lord tests the righteous, but loathes the wicked and does not, and the one who loves injustice. Rabbi Yochanan said that the potter only hits the strongest pots to show their strength, but never the flawed ones which would break with one strike. So too God only tests the righteous. The flax grower only combs the good flax and thereby strengthens it, but never the weak flax which would fall apart. The farmer who has 2 cows, one strong and one weak, puts the yoke on the stronger cow. Conversation. These texts speak to the covenantal relationship between people and God, between justice and mercy. What is our role and responsibility in this relationship? According to the Mechilta, what are the consequences of not doing God's will? How do you understand this text? Do you find this text problematic? Why or why not? How do you relate to God when bad things happen? Where is the balance between justice and mercy? Do you think that the Midrash above is a realistic and sensitive way to view challenges in our lives? How do you make sense of the challenges in your life in terms of this debate? It's a much lighter one for us to discuss.
Well, the justice and the mercy thing, this is my whole high holy day thing. When we go, we want justice in the world. We want a God that judges and says, all right, you're bad and, you get punished or you're rewarded. But we also want a God who is merciful and loves us and cares for us and can be compassionate. So I think that the first explanation of Midrash is, you can't stand on just justice alone. It's too severe. You can't. That's the whole, Jonah story there. It can't exist. And the rabbis, that the fact that there's 2 names were very cleverly, that there's different qualities of God and all the different, names for God. But I like to look at, that God of mercy, that God of compassion when bad things happen, to me, that God is never going to run out of compassion and love, and that I can call on God when I'm in those times of need. But
It reminds me of the expression that God doesn't give you more than you can bear. And I say, I wish he had a little less faith in what I could bear. Because,
correct. I don't always I hear that a lot, and I don't always know if it's helpful, to someone who's going through something that's, really, that's difficult. But it is one way of understanding it. But yeah, it's not always helpful. It's not always helpful.
No, it is
really important.
Very unhelpful.
Well, I think it comes. I also, first of all, I'm not sure where it's sourced. I don't know of any primary source that has this idea in it. So it could be like a modern.
I think it's more in a Christian tradition.
Maybe,
But it does sound like it looks a little like the Midrash Rabbah on Genesis 32. The Lord tests the righteous, right?
Right.
God knows that the righteous are going to come through it, and doesn't bother with,
So that's my question. What does it mean to come out of the test successfully? The Nebuch, the person that's the woman struggling with breast cancer for 5 years and then dies. Well, she didn't come out of that okay. She wasn't made stronger. She died. But maybe that's because we think, no, the point of the test is kind of somehow to come through that and be stronger at the end. But maybe the test is a spiritual one. Well, yeah, she did die. But through that experience, somehow, who knows what, she developed a faith which was much stronger than before. So I think it has to be made clear to people, listen, I'm not telling you that things are going to land up great. You lost your money. I'm not telling you that you're going to come back and make it all again. But this is a test where there is some, let's say, moral test going on over here. There's some spiritual work which you can do, which could then, then I think the message is true, which you are able to do. There's always some spiritual work that you're able to do, no matter in which situation. That's.
Well, I think it's also the difference in positive or negative outcome is there's a difference between curing and healing. So God can help you heal. He doesn't necessarily cure.
Not sure what does that mean in terms. Take that example of the person suffering with cancer.
I don't think that I would view the suffering as a gift or a punishment from God. And I would say that I can still be a decent or perhaps better person because I know what suffering feels like. I can't erase the suffering. It's just a fact.
Right, but it's what you do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely is what you do with it.
I think I have a trouble with the word test because that, number one, feels like some force set it up that way, which again evokes images of a puppet master. I think that everything that happens to us, it happens, and we have opportunities. But inside of that is my sort of stubborn desire to find meaning, that Jill must find meaning in this, which sort of places me at the center of something that I'm really not at the center of. But again, that's where I come from, this rationalist point of view. I don't feel.
I'm looking on my shelf for Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh yeah.
To show it to you, but I think I gave it to.
No, I just did a presentation about it. Maybe that's why it's on my mind.
I think it's a very, from a, Jewish point of view. He did not come from a, religious angle at all. But I think it fits very nicely into Judaism. This. You can always find some meaning. That's and maybe that's when we talk about God testing or God, we'll never really know how things come about. But at the end of the day, there's something much more important to realize. There's something to do here. There's some.
Yeah, it's that constant search for Gamzula Tov. I mean, what is going to come out of this for me, for the universe, for those I care about, whatever.
Right. Okay. A call to kindness. In this debate, God describes himself as the God who took us out of Egypt, rather than God who created us. The exodus from Egypt as an act of chesed, kindness, is central to our concept of a merciful God. When the Jewish people came out of Egypt, they heard a call to emulate God in this way. That's what it says in the song at the sea. This is my God, and I will be like him. Zeh keli va'anvehu. Source 2, Abba Shaul said, this is from, it's actually, I think, from the Talmud. Va'anvehu becomes similar to him. Just as he is gracious and merciful, so to you be gracious and merciful. Source 3, Talmud in Sota. Just as he clothes the naked as it is written, and the Lord God made for Adam and his wife clothes and leather, and he clothed them. So too you shall clothe the naked. The Holy One, blessed, he visited the sick, as it is written, and he appeared in Elohim Mamre while Abraham was in the plain. So too you shall visit the sick. The Holy One, blessed be he, comforted mourners, as it's written, and it was after the death of Abraham and God blessed his son Isaac. So too you shall comfort mourners. The Holy One, blessed is he, buried the dead. And as it is written, and he buried him, Moses, in the valley. So too you shall bury the dead. Source 4, the calling to emulate God does not stop at being gracious and merciful. We are meant to be like God in the attribute of strict justice by being rigid with ourselves rather than others. When Azai says, who is tough and rigid? He who conquers his own impulses. As it says, slowness to anger is better than a tough and rigid person, and the ruler of his spirit than the conqueror of a city. So conversation. I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt is a call for kindness. Why do you think the concept of chesed is contained as a core value in the first of the 10 commandments? Do you think of God as being kind? How does the idea of emulating God through kindness resonate with you? How do you know when we should emulate God through justice rather than mercy?
I mean, I use this I use this Talmud source for my high holiday sermons this year.
Okay.
I think that yes, God's kindness is inherent there. If God wasn't kind, I don't want to pray to a God that's not kind. And I think it's, we're supposed to be created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. What does that mean? It means we have to act like God too. And we have to, as this source says, we have to do with each other as God has done for us. And I point out as well that these things that are mentioned they're not easy to do. These are things that we may not always like. It's not always easy to visit the sick. It's not always easy to bury somebody. But we have to do these things and be kind to others, even though it might be difficult for us.
Nice.
I think of God as being kind in the sense of a parent who will always love you, who may really come down on you, but they're always going to be there if you'll just turn toward them rather than writing you off. And I think that's a real kindness.
And one we can emulate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, introduction. Digging deeper into chesed. Besides the benefit to society, through chesed we extend beyond ourselves. This Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner called the first step on the path of spirituality. Let us explore the personality and sensitivity of the Baal Chesed, kind person. The Talmud says, a potential convert dared Hillel to teach him the entire Torah while he, the convert, stood on one foot. Hillel answered, that which is hateful to you, do not do to another. That is the entire Torah, and the rest of it is interpretation. Go study. Source 2, 100things.com.au. That's Australia. In 2009, at the age of 27, Australian Sebastian Terry realized that, like most people, he had not achieved anything on his long-forgotten list. The death of a close friend, combined with a natural abstract view of life, sparked a moment of clarity. Sebastian decided to create a list of 100 things. His goal, to check off everything. It's the start of a crazy, no-holds-barred adventure that took him to the ends of the earth on a quest to prove that anything is possible. Number 26, and if you look at it, you can see what he did. Help a stranger changed his life. He wrote on his blog, after seeing me give an interview on TV, Mark contacted me and told me that he too had a bucket list. Seeing that someone was out there checking items off, gave him the motivation to readdress his list and asked if I would help him. Now Mark not only has a list, but also has a massive challenge in completing it due to an undiagnosed neurological disorder that he's had for a while. As a result, he is sadly confined to a wheelchair with very little movement. He told me that it was a dream of his to complete a half marathon. I asked him how someone in his condition would go about completing a half marathon, to which he replied, I just need someone to push me. Sebastian immediately enrolled them into the Melbourne Half Marathon and pushed them the whole way. After the race, he wrote the following: "On a personal level, I didn't think I'd ever be involved with something so rewarding. This wasn't about me, it was about Mark. And after the race, he looked at me with a big smile on his face and simply said, 'That was special.'" In what way is helping others more meaningful than doing something for yourself? Who are the kindest people you know? What drives them? Which elements of chesed do you find most meaningful? Which elements of chesed are performed in your community, society, which need improvement? Or best performed, sorry. Our society is more affluent than almost any other in history, probably than any other in history. Are there specific elements of chesed which are less needed or more needed?
Oh no, I think America's just fine when it comes to kindness. We're overflowing with kindness. Our cup runneth over with kindness.
You being sarcastic there?
Maybe.
Go on, elaborate a little. You know, you could argue that America gives more aid to other countries than any other country in the world. There might be strings attached, but
I think there are things we're doing very well. We are in general a very physically generous society. And certainly Jews are a very generous community. I think as a nation, we have insensitivity has become normalized, if you will, and more acceptable than I think it's been, at least in my lifetime. Words have become cruel words have become mainstream. And cruel, you know, I mean, it all begins with words, and in my opinion, I mean, words, yeah. So
do you see that? Do you see a manifestation of that? That people are less kind because of that? It's created an environment where people are less kind?
I think yes. On the internet, I think there's a sort of normalization of really cruel behavior on the internet among young people and probably adults. So I think, and I think that there are manifestations of unkindness which cut off conversation and problem solving, cooperation and collaboration on the national level. So yeah, I do. I think that words have caused us, and when I say us, I mean writ large, you know, like the people I go around with, right? You know, they're like me, they're being careful, but I think we have allowed unkind words into society that didn't used to be an unkind behavior. I mean, you know, when I was growing up, you didn't use the word kill. I mean, it was almost like you know, you didn't have the physical response as an option. It just wasn't an option, no matter how angry you became. And I mean that to yourself as well, that this whole suicide, I mean, it was like almost like a dirty word. You didn't, I don't know, did you all, Carol, when you were growing up, did people like talk about suicide like that? My life is awful and I'm going to commit suicide. I mean, it wasn't even there. And I think, you know, unkindness has to do with how we are ourselves too, how we treat ourselves too.
Interesting.
Well, I'm not so sure that, you know, about the suicide thing, that people weren't committing suicide, or I don't know if it's statistically more people are committing suicide now.
No, but they're
I think we
publicly
know about it.
encouraged.
Yeah, we have ways of publicizing it. I do think that the internet has created, because I think in many ways you can be anonymous. It just lets you, you know, people just feel like they can go on with this anonymous name and say whatever they, and say really hateful, horrible things. So that they wouldn't normally do, because it's not, you're not speaking to people on a, they wouldn't say it to your face, you know. But on the internet, yeah, I don't know who this person is over here. I'll just write out a little thing and spew something, and they don't know who I am and they can't find me, and I'll just say that, which I think is, you know, awful. On the other hand, as I think you mentioned, it's on, when something happens, a disaster happens, you know, we do come out in droves and give, and you know, whenever a tragedy happens, and you know, people are always there, and it's wonderful to see. But I think there's like this, you know, like this breaking of like half the time we're at each other's throats, and then, you know, then trying to come back with that. There are many kind and loving people out there, but there's also a lot of not. And it's difficult to see the divisiveness, and I think it's just pervasive in society. You just open up the newspaper and, you know, just see what's going on, and unfortunately, people, I think, emulate other people in power that act in a disgraceful manner, and then it becomes like, well, that guy did it, you know, I'm just gonna be nasty and horrible too, and it's just disturbing, to say the least.
I'd like to reference back to you when a disaster happens and people turn out. That's a very, very finite response. We don't have an underlying support system for every day. And, you know, yeah, it's easy to respond when a volcano happens or a hurricane happens, but that's a very self-limited response. I think the point is to give people support so that those who had substandard housing, for example, have housing that can withstand a natural disaster, stuff like that. Just as a tiny example. I think that we need to be doing stuff on a routine and regular basis, as opposed to, oh my God, look what happened, let's do something.
Well, one of the things I think about when I think about the Ten Commandments as core values is almost like a mindset. You know, to me, these are helping me refine, define, resonate with a mindset. And the question would be, do people have a mindset of chesed? Are people waking up in the morning thinking, how am I going to get through the day? Or are they thinking, you know, part of what I'm thinking about, who can I help today? Who's out there that I can touch, that I can improve their day, can be there for them for? And I don't know. I don't know if there's anything modern about it. No, and it could be a lot to do with living in a capitalistic society, that we feel, I've lived in South Africa, in England, in Israel, and America. And it does appear to me that America is the most, I think has the biggest challenge with this, that we're a bit fixated on people fending for themselves and getting ahead and making it big and becoming whatever they want to become. And, you know, given so much responsibility and encouragement also, that, you know, you can do it, and you've got to fight and you've got to work hard, that, you know, if a person doesn't need you, if a person doesn't, they can look right through you. You know, I've never had that before, that a person could not make facial contact without a recognition. You know, in South Africa and Israel, I'm not so sure. But in South Africa, and I grew up under apartheid, which is actually crazy to say, but if you made facial contact with someone, there would be a recognition. You could not just look at someone plainly and almost, no, they're not used to me. I don't need to deal with this person. So I think that's challenging to change this paradigm of mindset, that no, I'm here to serve. Maybe I'm here to be of benefit of I think that's part of a Baal Chesed. You know, maybe that's addressing the second question. Who are the kindest people? You know, what drives them? It's a real connection to others and a sense of being here for others. Present company is thankfully very excluded from my analysis. You know, I tell you the truth, I suffer from it too now. I catch myself just walking past people, and it's terrible. Okay, integration. What does this diber mean to you as a core value? When can it be applied? What are the challenges you will face? How can you overcome them?
I think, when I think of core values, I think of ongoing, every day, all the day. And so it's, as you said just a second ago, to recommit myself to wake up every day and say, who will I be in the world today? And how will I participate in Tikkun Olam? Who needs my help? Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's really hard. And we say the Elu Devarim, Porch prayer, in the morning service. And I don't know, except for Shabbat, many Reform Jews who even do the morning service except on Shabbat. So you don't even have that reminder.
Mm-hmm. My mother, when I was growing up, I never, and I mean never, heard Lashon Hara. I don't know how she did it. My mother was like, I always said she was a seamstress. She was not a seamstress, but she sewed people together. This was who she was in life. And I so I wake up every day and I say, may my behavior today honor both of my parents, because they were two of the kindest people I knew. They were wonderful.
Beautiful.
I don't always do it. But.
To me, it's really a calling to, in my faith in God, to see God's kindness. I think before I became involved with this diber, the God question was, is there a God, isn't there a God? Almost this philosophical question. But this really takes me to a whole new level of, wait, who is God? Find the kindness, open my eyes to that kindness, and then the next step to continue it, to then extend that to others. That's a whole new world for me.
Is it in Les Mis where it says to love someone is to see the face of God? It's something like that. To look in the face of someone you love is to look in the face of God, or something like that.
Okay. Every day, recognize kindness in the world, be in the kindness of God, or be it in the kindness of God or the kindness of others, and learn from it to emulate it. Do an internal act of chesed, do an intentional act of kindness to another person, to a loved one, a friend, or even a stranger. Enter a faith conversation, ask someone about their belief in God, listen, learn, challenge, and share. Then some supplemental materials, who's in the text, and in what way do you emulate God through your social action project, and how are your personal projects making you a person of deeper faith or a kinder person. Great. Okay, thank you, folks. Have a wonderful week.
I have a question. Why is it said Elokeinu with a kuf? In the very beginning.
Yes, because we decided not to write God's name in their full. We've changed it throughout this curriculum. Otherwise, there's a question of people. You got to put in Seamus, so they might disrespect it if it's printed.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So the kuf instead of like a hey?
So if you look, so basically it became a kuf because the hey, if you just extend the line, it becomes a kuf. I know it changes in the, it turns around, it curves a little, but that's the closest letter to change without the visual changing so much.
Okay,
Even
so you're saying instead of like G-D, it's that kind of a
Yeah.
thing?
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. G-G technically is okay to spell out God in English. You don't have to put it in and throw it out and everything like that. It's only the Hebrew words. There's, 7 different names of God that if it's spelled out completely, you can't just throw out your materials. You have to bury them. So
But don't the like Chabadniks, they don't even, they don't ever write in English, but like people write G-D all the time. Is that
I
just?
know, but for me, I think it's overkill. You're already, we have it all over. None of our printed prayer books have G-D, right? There's nothing technically wrong with that, halachically wrong with that, as far as I know. People just want to that's the extra fence that you're putting around.
It's interesting. If you notice, in this curriculum, we did write God in English, but we wrote Elohim.
But I kind of go by, I don't like to write out the name, and then now it's interesting now that we have computers and you can print things out all the time, and then you find a typo, and then you have to, or you're collecting sheets from everybody, and it's like, I have to keep burying it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going with the not spelling the name. I have to worry about this anymore, because if I had to get rid of these things and have to bury them, I'm happy that you guys did that.
And so if you read it though, do you still read it with a kuf?
No, it depends on some people only believe that they can pronounce those names in prayer or when you're doing something religiously. Other people I don't have a problem with saying Elohim, and if I'm studying and learning and saying the word Adonai, other people will say Hashem or Adoshem or what have you. But yeah, I as a
you should definitely use the proper name in prayer.
Yes, and and that's the hard part, is that you'll get somebody who doesn't know, and if you have it in prayer and they're going to say Elokeinu, like sometimes you'll see it even on a talit, you'll see the prayer. Right?
With a
Why? Yeah, with the kuf or the hey apostrophe hey, there, because if you want to, the talis wears out. What do? You have to bury it, because it's got the name there. But then the kid will get up there and start reading it when he's putting the talis on and says Elokeinu, or he'll look at it and say, like, what is that? But so
yeah, I have a friend.
Yeah.
I have a friend for his bar mitzvah. So he had trained and he had learned to do the Maariv prayer.
Right.
And he got to shul and he said, Baruch Hu es Hashem HaMavarach, and everyone was like, Hashem, Hashem.
Right.
And because they didn't want to say Adonai back to him, and he was like, yeah, I said Hashem. And they went on for 5 minutes. Then he was like, oh, you mean
That's why I never teach the kids to do that, because we're learning, and it's in the name of learning. So so I don't do that. But I explain that if we have like handouts, that I'm not doing it. I have too many pieces of paper that I have boxes and boxes of things I have to bring to the cemetery to bury. It's gets out of hand.
Well, thank you.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
Okay, have a great week, guys. Bye.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Take care.